President, I've served in this body for 19 years, and I would say I have never been more dismayed, more concerned, or more frustrated than I have been these past few days. And every day it gets a little bit worse because day by day our country grows closer to defaulting on our sovereign debt, something that has never, ever happened in the history of this country. And the repercussions of this protracted and public debate on whether our government will honor its financial obligations are already evident. So this is what we know for sure. The stock market has seen several days of decline as investors sell off securities. The United States is at high risk of a credit downgrade. Gold prices are climbing as people try to protect themselves from a ratings downgrade and a drop in the value of the dollar. In short, default may well have catastrophic economic consequences domestically and internationally. And what is the message we are communicating to the world? Secretary Clinton told me in an evening conversation I had with her, she had just returned from visiting 5 countries, and she said everybody was asking her, what is wrong in your country? What are you going to do? So this is now a worldwide crisis, and one that we must address. What we are seeing here is, in a sense, a broken government that can't take care of the affairs of its people in a prudent and practical way. It is absolutely amazing to me that 20 to 70 members of the House of Representatives believe they can run the government of the United States, despite the fact that the presidency and the majority in the United States Senate are controlled by another party. Essentially, they appear willing to allow this great nation to default, rather than compromise and reach a practical solution. So what are the consequences of default for American families? For sure, default would raise interest rates, driving up costs for everyone. For sure, the cost of owning a home, buying a car, buying food, filling a gas tank, sending children to college will even become more expensive, squeezing already tight family budgets and damaging this fragile economy. Many people predict a second dip recession. But in essence, default causes an immediate tax increase in the form of these rising interest rates on families. The talk of default is disrupting financial markets and will trigger a sharp fall in the stock market, causing huge losses in retirement accounts and wiping out the gains of 2 years. This morning, I saw a TV story about a man who is selling his mutual funds because he has no confidence in our ability to resolve this crisis. Not a good thing to do. Higher interest rates will also drive up costs for both the federal and state governments, because every 1% increase in interest payments for the federal government means an additional $100 billion cost to the government. Default will be devastating for state governments that would see their borrowing costs dramatically increase, because their ability to borrow is tied to the interest rates paid by the federal government. The cost of borrowing for states, for municipalities, for local water districts will all rise. Let me give you an example. My own state of California recently took out a $5.4 billion loan from 5 major investment banks ahead of a possible default to insure itself against rising interest rates. Here's the 6th largest economy on earth, worried that their interest rates are going to jump, so they take out a $5 billion loan from investment banks to be able to meet any increased interest on obligations owed. For the broader economy, default would mean hundreds of thousands of jobs lost every year, according to the Federal Reserve. Chairman Bernanke has said, and I quote, "The economy may be thrown into reverse and employers would start cutting jobs if Congress fails to raise the nation's legal borrowing authority." Now, I've heard some say that on August 3rd, the Treasury will still have enough money to meet our obligations and avoid default. That is simply false. According to the Bipartisan Policy Center, the United States government has $306.7 billion in payments due in August and will take in an estimated $172.4 billion in revenue for the month. That's a $134 billion shortfall for the month of August. So, the Treasury will not be able to pay its bills. In other words, 44% of United States government bills will go unpaid if the federal government fails to raise the debt ceiling by the August 2nd deadline. Treasury would be forced to spend all income inflows covering just 6 major items: interest, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, unemployment insurance, and defense vendors. That would mean entire federal departments would have no funds, including Justice, Labor, and Commerce. It would mean no funds for veterans benefits, active duty military pay, IRS refunds, special education, Pell Grants, and more. There is simply no way to escape it. Let me give you an example. On the next day, which is August 3rd, the Treasury will take in $12 billion in revenues, but it will still owe $32 billion in revenues. Let me tell you what that includes. It includes $23 billion in Social Security payments. I understand 45 million checks are ready to go out during these days. It's $2.2 billion for Medicare. It's $1.8 billion for education, and it's $1.4 billion for defense. If the debt ceiling is not raised by August 2nd, or if we only reach an agreement for a short-term extension, the already spooked credit rating agencies could react unfavorably. And this is the problem. You want to go back to this same situation in 6 months and go through this all over again? It makes no sense. And if the marketplace wants stability and constancy, they're clearly not going to get it, knowing that this is going to be coming up in 6 months again. Moody's has said it's possible. Our credit rating would go down with a short-term increase and warned that an agreement should get us through the year 2012. All right, don't pay attention to it. But that warning is out there. It's going to take getting through the year 2012, according to at least one of the rating houses. Fitch has said a deficit deal must be credible and sustainable, or United States ratings could still be downgraded. Does anybody believe it's credible and sustainable to do this thing for 6 months and be right back where we are today? I don't think so. Standard & Poor's has said it may lower the country's long-term credit rating if it concludes that future adjustments to the debt ceiling are likely to be the subject of political maneuvering. Not my words, their words. You want to go through this in 6 months again with the same results and creating all of the uncertainty for the 6 months between now and then? I don't think so. In other words, these rating agencies have very real questions about the willingness and ability of this Congress and the administration to timely honor scheduled debt obligations. Now, I have to say this, and I've been here for 9 years. I have never seen a time when Republicans just do not want to come to an agreement with this president. The president, I think, by any standard, has bent over backwards. And still, Republicans walk away from the negotiating table. Well, let me tell you, I've done a lot of negotiations in my time. Big labor strikes and work stoppages. I would ask unanimous consent for 5 more minutes.
Is there objection?
I was given an 11:10 time and saw that we were alternating. I've got a conference call that starts. I'm glad for you to finish. I hate for you, but if you could make it even shorter than that, it'd be much appreciated.
All right, how about
I have people waiting.
3 minutes?
Okay.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request for 3 minutes? Without objection, so ordered.
There have been 2 months of negotiations with the vice president, and Majority Leader Cantor walked out. There were negotiations with the president and Speaker Boehner. Boehner walked out. House Republicans do not like Simpson-Bowles, nor do they like the Gang of Six plan. These are the 2 big plans which offer a solution for the future. Instead, they want massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and discretionary spending, and ask absolutely nothing from those Americans who are doing very well in this economy, actually the top 1%. Well, I represent 37 million people. California is bigger than 21 states and the District of Columbia put together. 15 to 20 million people in my state depend on programs that the Republicans want to take a meat axe to. Not a scalpel, but a meat axe. SSI, Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. We've gotten these numbers. We've looked at them for overlapping, and I can truthfully say the number is 15 to 20 million. Well, look, I want to know how a cut is going to affect these programs. We could do this if we agreed to take 6 months, draft in bill language the Gang of Six, mandate the hearings, fast-track a bill to the floor of the Senate. Every member of this body knows it's bill language that spells out what you need to look out for. I need to look out what happens to the Medicare provider tax, because so many hospitals in the state depend on it. If it lasts to 2014, it's okay, but I don't know. So I very strongly believe there is a solution and that reasonable people can work it out, and I hope the leadership of this body will talk with the leadership of the other body. I thank you, Senator Corker. Thank you for your courtesy, and I yield the floor.